The Legacy Files with Grant Cameron.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Grant Cameron. I'm joined by my assistant and co-author Desta Barnabe in Ontario. I'm on the West Coast in what's called God's Country, and we're back with another episode of Yankee Black Paranormal News. And Yankee Black is a code name for an highly compartmentalized material above SCI, and it's sort of breaking into the news network. So we're running Yankee Black News to find the biggest secrets and tell you what's going on. Today, Desta and I are going to talk about books. We are busy producing a lot of books, documenting a lot of research that we do, and we're using AI. And I think we're going to do I want to do a session upcoming on AI. I had a big giant fight with AI. But we're going to talk about books. I have a book on music coming out, and Desta has a book, and I'm trying to get people to interview her on this. Uh, this is a subject that everybody sort of knows a little bit about, but Desta has gone a little bit deeper, and it has to do with MK Ultra. So it's new material that people have never heard before, and it's Yankee Black type news, very highly compartmentalized, I'm pretty sure, as to what was going on. And so, Desta, talk a little bit about your research that you did on this and the fact that you found out you may have actually been in this program.
Well, the program is called the GATE program. So it's the Gifted and Talented Education Program that a lot of people, especially in the States and Canada, wasn't called the GATE program, but it was just like an enrichment program that we had. And in the States, it's called the GATE program. And yeah, it's I had a whole bunch of crazy synchronicities that piled up at the beginning of this year when I started really looking into it because I was part of it. Ours was just, like I said, it was just called the Enrichment Group, and it was for the smarter kids in the class or whatever, and they kind of like took us out of class. And I guess the theory behind the class is supposed to be so you're not bored in class. And I guess it's supposed to be just a program where they're giving you more, advanced reading and math and, whatever. It was an elementary school, so I don't know how advanced the stuff could have been, but I was in it from grade 2 to 5. And I thought I always have a really bad memory, but I have almost no memory of my entire childhood, especially those years. And so I always remembered that I was in it. We called it the green group. They just called it different colors in our school anyway, so to not let anyone feel bad. But we were taken out of our class and sent sent to one of the other rooms in the school that was for the I don't know what else they actually did in that room, but it wasn't a classroom. It was just like the guidance counselor for the school's room. And yeah, we did some weird things here, but I realized at the beginning of this year that a lot of people were talking about this GATE program, and I didn't know ours was called the GATE program. I just knew I was also in the smart kids class or whatever. And yeah, I had a bunch of synchronicities of really weird things. And so I started thinking like, oh my God, that's so weird, and investigating things and looking online, and all of a sudden, all these people from the GATE program all over the States were, just suddenly it was like this new thing online where everyone was saying like, oh, I was part of the GATE program and I don't remember either. And I was given this, pink drink and I don't remember anything after. And we were given, the old Zener cards, like the ESP cards, and taught and like asked to do the GATE, the gateway process from Bob Monroe and the Monroe Institute was a bunch of like tones and binaural beats that they were giving to people to try getting them to astral travel. And a lot of people remember this being given to them when they were kids in elementary school. And most people don't remember anything about the program. And so I started looking into it, and yeah. And there's a big connection with MK Ultra because, of course, the CIA was funding all of these programs, and no one remembers what they were doing to us, when we were kids. And so But I actually really, like, I was like investigating it and researching it and writing some stuff and wondering if it could be a book. But it wasn't until I saw Ross Coulthart's interview with Jake Barber on News Nation that Jake Barber actually said he was part of the GATE program. And I had watched that interview when it came out in February or March or whenever it came out. But I didn't know what the GATE program was then. So it wasn't until after that that I was hearing that people were calling it the GATE program, and then realized that it was the same program funded by the Human Ecology Fund here in Canada, and we just called it Enrichment program, that I started thinking like, oh my God, there's something weird going on here, and weird thing that it looks like that this GATE program was actually, they were either searching for psychic children, people who already had this ability, or they were trying to make psychic children. And, it's all, we're just theorizing. No one knows what it is, but I thought I'd like lay the book out with a bunch of like the real programs that the CIA was doing and what they were doing through MKUltra and a bunch of these other programs, and why I think that that's what it was, is that they were searching for psychic kids or trying to make kids psychic at that early age.
And your book's like 400 pages, so it's not like it's some little thing that you found. You did a lot of research and pulled a lot of material.
Yeah, I was trying to give it like the background, because I'm just one of those people that never trust the CIA. I just read in my life about all the things that they were doing. So I'm always like not trusting of what the secret programs or government programs or hidden programs or anything was. So I didn't think that it was true that it had a link. But then the more I looked into it, the more I was finding all these links. And one of the craziest links of everything, and one of these big synchronicities, is that one of the main psychiatrists in the world that actually uncovered all the MKUltra documents and read through all of the MKUltra documents when they came out. And because he's a big psychiatrist, he was looking into obviously from a psychiatry angle, like what they were doing to people. And he's also one of the world's leading authorities on DID, which is dissociative identity disorder, which used to be called multiple personality disorder. He's one of the leading psychiatrists in the world on that disorder, and he also has read all the MKUltra documents, and so he was kind of bringing them out in a couple of his books, and he was really talking because he was upset at the psychiatry angle of how all the psychiatrists were basically breaking the Hippocratic Oath and saying that they were not going to do anything against their patients. And meanwhile, they were being funded, and a lot of them knowingly, from the CIA to be able to do some of these experiments. And some of them, like a lot of these experiments, were on children. And of course, they involved LSD, shock treatment, like electroshock treatment, and trauma and torture, and a lot of very nefarious things that these people were openly doing to people in prisons and hospitals, people with psychiatric disorders already. And so the crazy part about the whole thing is that my mom worked for this guy's name's Dr. Colin Ross. My mom worked in St. Boniface Hospital for my whole childhood with Colin Ross, and he's the leading expert in both these two things. And the dissociative part of his work is really making me rethink the psychic abilities that I just recently, a couple months ago, wrote the book about my psychic abilities, and how my theory at that point, just at the beginning of this year, was that it was coming from this meditative space that you can practice and you get to, and it's from practice. And I literally just published that book, and now it's actually, my whole mindset about that has changed, and now I'm starting to think it's from a dissociative part of the brain. It's not necessarily from a meditative part. And I am wondering or questioning whether this GATE program that I was in when I was young was the beginning of getting me to be able to dissociate, and that's where the psychic abilities came from.
Yeah,
it's a theory, but a lot of people have the theory.
An interesting supporting, and for people who are doing podcasts, get Desta on here to elaborate on this, because there are supporting material in the United States. Jim Semivan, who ran covert ops for the CIA for a number of years and had UFO experience, beings in his room and all this kind of stuff, actually talks about a briefing that he was given by people who had as many clearances as he had. And these would be what are called subject matter experts. So if you are writing a book on UFOs, you work in the government, and you got to go put it in front of this DOPSR committee, it goes to subject matter experts, who are the people in the field who are the experts on what is the latest material, what do we know. And so these subject matter experts came into the CIA, and he said they had non-escort badges, so they could walk around wherever they wanted inside the CIA, and they had as many clearance tickets as he had. He talked about the fact that they gave him a 7 hour interview, a 7 hour briefing, and then they gave him another briefing later on about programs that they were top black programs they were working on. And Jim said they scared the living hell out of me. And he said for 3 months he walked around in a daze because he would say to them, he thought this was all garbage, and then they'd say, no, no, that's true. We actually worked on this. And so he asked them. He was being interviewed by James Ian Dolly, and James Ian Dolly was trying to get, of course, details on what they had discovered, what developments they had made, and he said, well, were the developments that they had made on UFOs? And then Jim said, no, no, not UFOs. It was more like psychic stuff. And so they have made some developments, according to Jim Sembian. They've made no developments whatsoever on the nuts and bolts, but they have made a lot of developments on the psychic aspect of developing this kind of stuff. And this sounds what it's like is this finding that people have these abilities, and then you watch these people, which would make total sense. The CIA is just an organization that gathers material. They don't have any intelligence themselves. They have to go to people who have the intelligence. So they're of course they're going to be watching people who are very psychic and stuff like that. So very interesting book sounds like. And Destas, that's your fourth book now?
Fifth.
Fifth. Wow. So you're putting them out left, right, and center. So we're going to do an interview about this. You've got a PowerPoint you're going to present for me, and we're going to do that down the road. And the other book that I'm working on that Desta was sort of involved in, we had a book we were going to do called the Muse. And this is this whole idea that we wrote in our book, Contact Modalities, that if you can dissociate and shut down the left brain, you can get into the field. And the idea was that in the field, there's all this material that you can grab and come back. And that it's the idea, the old ancient idea of the muse that's helping artists make art, and they're helping people write books, and they're helping all this kind of stuff. And so that was what we originally started, and we probably will finish that book. But I got tied into the music thing, and I was going to do the music chapters, and now the music chapters have turned into my second music book, which is, as I said, very bizarre because my father would be turning over in his grave right now because I had no interest in music, no background in music, absolutely nothing. And this is now my second music book. It's just about ready to go. I'm just going to read to you, and what it basically looks at is, where does music come from? And I look at all the different download stuff from musicians, which we did a little bit in the first book, which was called Tuned In, The Paranormal World of Music. This one goes a lot into music that happens in just before people die. They hear music. Near-death experience, people hear music. People in the spirit world hear music. And so I get all these different cases that I've gathered from all these different fields that show that music may be a focal element of the universe, almost like mathematics, that music is built into everything. Everything is vibration, and music is vibration. And it's this crossover that music is a lot more important than people think it is. And I just want to pick one little quote. I always been very sympathetic to young children who die. And young children who die really don't have the fear because they haven't developed the left brain yet. It doesn't come on until you're 7 years old. And so a lot of kids, they're living in the day to day, like my grandson. Everything is right here, right now. He has no worries about the past or worries about the future. It's right now. And if he doesn't get what he wants, he cries. And so children are in the here and now. And here's one quote, and I'll leave with this. This is one of the quotes from one of the children who was dying, who heard music. And I've got a number of these in the book, which they're very touching. A music therapist worked with a terminally ill child who loved drawing. One day, the child drew a picture of herself floating upward amidst musical notes, saying, "This is when the pretty, pretty music comes, and I go with the lady." Weeks later, during her final moments, the therapist played. The child suddenly smiled, pointed to the ceiling, whispered, "The music, the lady is here," and passed away. So we'll call it a end of this session, and we're going to go on to some other items that we've got backlogged here. Thanks for listening to this episode. I'm always amazed that people have nothing better to do than to listen to me and to Desta yak about this kind of stuff. Thanks for listening, and I appreciate it.